And tonight's meeting, Beau's Green Big Year, which he started last January, and he will describe it to you. As I said, it's funny because he's local, but he's in Texas now, and I will tell you, you should all congratulate him because he's a grandfather, and that's why he's in Texas, new grandfather. Beau taught biology and genetics at Liberty High School for 33 years, and he retired in May. And this was actually the perfect year for him to do his Green Big Year between retirement and the pandemic. He will tell you that he biked over 6,000 miles. He's really kind of an Iron Man. He's also an unbelievable birder by ear, a very generous birding colleague, leads field trips for us and other people. And he also, along with Andy Stewart and Eric Lundquist, holds the Lake County, Illinois Big Day record with 164 species. That's about all I have to say. I will let Beau talk now. I'm going to turn it over, and he's going to tell us about his Green Big Year.
All right, I'm going to try and share the screen now.
Yeah, you should be able to share the screen.
Okay. Here we go. Awesome.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. All right, so you guys want to read all about my year, there you go. Just go to beausbirds.com and you can read about the whole thing. Or you can just listen to me tonight.
Or both.
Yeah. Okay. So that's just a picture of me with my bikes and my Merrill boots, which are the best boots ever. And I should be getting paid for their advertising, but those things are the warmest boots. And honestly, I wouldn't be able to ride my bike in the wintertime too well without those boots, because they keep my toes nice and warm when I'm on my bike. When I started out, I only had one bike. I just had this bike from, it was a Giant Escape that I bought July 2019 just to try it out. And then I got a Priority Apollo in November, which is a belt drive bike, which has an internal cassette, which is really nice. So all the gears are stored internally. And there's no metal chain. It's a rubber belt. So it's really low maintenance, which is really awesome. Plus it's very easy to ride, very efficient. So those two bikes have been getting me through the whole thing. So it's been pretty nice. All right, so how did this whole thing come about? So I started riding my bike a lot more, looking for the birds when I was suffering from a back problem. And I had a spondylolisthesis, which is a problem with your lower back where your vertebrae pinch your spinal cord, basically, and peripheral nerves. And it was very painful to walk. I could only walk like a quarter of a mile. So I started riding my bike, which didn't hurt at all. So that was really good. And so I just decided, and I could see a lot of birds and hear a lot more when I was on my bike and cover more areas. So I just started riding my bike more. And finally, I was just like, then we moved across the street from Rollins, Savannah. So when Rollins, Savannah is across the street from your house, then you can go, oh, I can just ride my bike over to Rollins every day and find birds. So those two things combined, I was kind of like, yeah, maybe I'll try doing a big year by bike and see how that goes. Plus, I really was feeling kind of guilty about the amount of time I was spending driving and all the money wasted on gas and, plus your carbon footprint and all that stuff. So I was trying to do as much as possible to reduce that. So I thought, that would be another great reason to ride my bike. And I just like getting outside and doing stuff outside. So, that all fit together pretty well with trying to do a birding big year. And I like patch birding where you just do stuff close to your home. So, but we'll talk more about that later on too. So here's my patch. That's my house right there. And that's Rollins. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of good places to find birds around here. I'll show you some of the stuff I found. But one of the great things about doing the biking big year, I'll talk, about various things, but you find new places to find birds. And You know, I found some really good ones in spots where, oops. Okay. How do you go backwards?
Hit your left arrow, maybe.
Yeah, it's just beeping on me, but okay, whatever. Okay, so anyway, you find new places to find birds, and you know, but we'll come across that again too. So a couple of numbers from this year. I rode a lot of miles. I tried to look up like what people have done in the past. Obviously, Dorian Anderson, who did a biking big year across the country, did like 16,000 or something like that. I tried to find who had done state big years on their bike, and I couldn't find much on it, but the guy who holds the record in California got 320 species, but I rode more miles than he did. So I don't think anyone in a state big year has done as many miles as I have. But and some guy in Ohio, I just found today, somebody I think got 287 species in Ohio. So he's the only one I've heard of who's gotten more than 276 in an internal state anyway. All the other ones are either Arizona or California. Florida doesn't even, I couldn't even find any for Florida, which was surprising to me. But so anyway, that's all I found though. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist out there, but I just tried to see what I did compared to other people. These are my two biggest months. May, I got 1,000 miles in May. That was insane. I was out riding like 30 miles a day in May. There was just stuff to go chase all the time. So, and November was pretty close. February, the weather is terrible, and I was teaching still, and yeah, I think that's pretty much why I only did 128 miles in February, just those two things combined. COVID actually helped me a lot because I was basically done teaching in March. And so I was able to get out on my bike. Like this would never have been possible if I was still teaching at school, you know, with a regular school year. So I know it was not fun, but it actually for biking big years was pretty good. And these were all green. Now, what does that mean? That means only muscle power. So didn't use any fossil fuels for any of them. Started at my house, ended at my house. You have to go both directions. You can't just go one way and then get picked up. So they were almost all of them were on my bike. Some I did walking. So there's some walking as well, especially in the winter. And I did a couple days of kayaking with my wife at Channel Lake State Park. So, but I rode my bike to get to Channel Lake State Park, then jumped on the kayak. All right, so let's look at a few highlights from the year. So in January, I was thinking, all right, so we got to go to the lakefront because in the winter, all the good birds show up on the lakefront. So you want to get the good stuff, you got to go to the lakefront, which is 28 miles round trip from my house to Waukegan, which is the closest one. Driving down Washington Street, which is the worst road in Lake County to ride a bike on. So I tried to always go early in the morning and, you know, just try to beat the traffic basically and not get in anyone's way, which worked most of the time except for one day, which we'll talk about later. So anyway, my first bird that I wanted to get was a Carolina wren, which is still there this year on Market Street. And they're very vocal. Plus, they've been found in a couple other places too. So the last year, went down there to get the Carolina wren. Also a long-tailed duck at Waukegan, which was nice. I actually found 3 of them that day, which was really cool. And a harlequin duck, which I didn't get a good picture of, unfortunately. But that was a great way to start the year, getting those birds. Then right across the street at Rollins, we got short-eared owls, which unfortunately we don't have around right now because they burned the entire center of the prairie, which, yeah, kind of eliminated the short-eared owl habitat for the winter. But last year got one of those in January, and then also a northern shrike at Rollins and a rough-legged hawk at Rollins. So the lakefront in Rollins, pretty much the best spots around, and any place you can find conifers. So McDonald Woods is good too, because they have lots of good conifer stands, and that's also not very far from my house. So I live in a pretty good spot as far as hitting a lot of good places in the county. So that was the start of my year. The weather wasn't too bad, although a lot of it looked like this. And so you can't ride too well on this unless you got a fatty bike, which I don't have, although I might get one later. But so if you don't have a fat tire bike, these are hard to navigate. So I just walked on the trails in January to begin the year. And my first trip down to Waukegan was terrible, because you ride your bike to Waukegan down Washington Street, and it's all downhill to the lake, which is great going to the lake. But then when you come back, it's all uphill. And most of the time the wind's coming out of the west. And so it's uphill and against the wind. And that's really difficult. So the first time I did that, I got home and I told my wife, I said, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I'm never doing it again. And then proceeded to do it about 26 more times the rest of the year. But every time I did it, I got a lot better at it. So the one thing about doing the biking big year is, well, you can make it what you want. I mean, if you just want to ride your bike to Rollins every day and just do that, that's great. Just do that. I like to challenge myself and basically just punish myself physically most of the time. So I do crazy things and, go on 100-mile bike rides and all kinds of other stuff, but you don't have to do it like that. It's just, I wanted to find as much stuff as I could, and I just like doing stuff. So yeah, the weather is not great in winter. So sometimes you end up walking. Waterfowl is another big target in the wintertime. Fortunately, Third Lake, which is also right across the street from me, is the deepest lake in Lake County. And so you always end up with, unless it's super cold, some open water on Third Lake. And you'll get quite an accumulation of waterfowl in a small little pond, basically, a lot of times. And, you can pick through all these geese that refuse to raise their heads. And so you can't really see what any of them are. But, then you got some trumpeter swans. Once in a while, you have a tundra mixed in there and, some ducks in there. So there's always something to look at, which is fun. So I go there almost every day. All right. February was not a very active month, but I found one of the best birds of the year. Not the gulls, but gulls are another good thing that you look at in the wintertime. You can get 6 species of gulls here, and the wintertime is the best time to look for them. I actually had all 6 species of them in an hour and a half at the dump. Rode my bike over to the dump. They used to hang out in the parking lot at the fairgrounds, but the fairgrounds people are doing something to scare them off because there's no gulls there anymore. Sometimes they're on the roof of the building, but I just go over by FedEx and just stand on the side in the snow, and it's fine. It's great viewing right there. And then all the gulls, there's hundreds of gulls there in the dump. You can find all kinds of good stuff. I got great looks at all 6 of them. So you're looking for the gulls, but the best bird, one of the best birds I had was a long-eared owl. First long-eared owl roost I've ever seen in my 15 years of birding extensively in Lake County. And that was phenomenal. And to get a great look like this at a long-eared owl was one of the biggest highlights of the year. And I did not find that myself. So that was somebody else close by had told me about it. And so he showed me where it was. It was pretty cool. So that was February, not a whole lot other than that. And then we hit March. Now March, this was a huge highlight as well, because I did find this bird. And this is on Third Lake again. That's a red-throated loon, and I've never had a red-throated loon anywhere away from Lake Michigan. So just wandering around Third Lake one day in March, and I see this bird out there. I'm like, that looks pretty good. And sure enough, it's a red-throated loon. That was huge. So that was a patch bird for me. It was a sight bird at Rollins, the Rollins area for me. So that was pretty cool as well. And see, a lot of that stuff I'm not going to find if I'm not on my bike riding around third lake and riding around Rollins Savannah, you know, if you're on your bike, you find some stuff that you're not going to find otherwise, which is kind of neat. And then we also have more. Now, this is when the gulls were still accumulating at Lake County Fairgrounds. So went over there, got a lesser blackback gull, got an Iceland gull Thayer's juvenile. And then at the end of March, the pelicans start showing up. Now, usually you have to go out to the chain to get the pelicans. I've never had the pelicans in March at Rollins before. So this is the first time I've ever seen them there. And they showed up a few times this year at Rollins. So that was pretty cool as well, seeing the American pelicans out there. Then we go to April. So now in April, the blackbirds start showing up first. So you get, and some of the sparrows, like a couple other ones I'll show you in a second, like Vesper sparrow. I like this picture because you have the Rusty on this side, you got the Brewers on this side. Rusty, you can't see it that well in this picture, but there's always like a little bit of rustiness on there. Plus, they're really dull black. These guys are glossy, shiny, very shiny. And they really like to hold their tails up like this too when they're walking around. And you're not going to see Rusties doing that. So it's just a couple of little tips when you're looking at these two blackbirds, how to tell them apart. You're usually going to find Rusties where there's some water around. But, you know, like there's water right there. How do you know that's not a Rusty? So that was cool. I found a Brewers, and you don't see Brewers out here very often either. But if I wasn't looking for whatever at Town Line Road at Campbell's Airport, which is only about 15 minutes from my house, you know, I can ride out there and check for field birds and stuff. I would never be there otherwise. So that was kind of cool as well. Vesper sparrow. Now I got this Vesper sparrow and a new spot. So previously, all the Vesper sparrows in Lake County that have bred in the past have been on Crawford Road, right next to Milburn School. Not next to Milburn School, but on the road next to Milburn. You got to take it farther north. But so one day I was riding my bike north from McDonald Woods to Raven Glen and then up to Red Wing Slough. And I rode my bike down Savage Road, which is kind of a little farm type road. And sure enough, there's a Vesper sparrow singing right in the tree, right on the side of the road. And he was there the entire summer. So I'm pretty sure they bred there, but I'll be checking for them again this year to see if they're still around. But that's a great place, you know, another great spot to have them. So that's good. And I know other people found them there as well. And my first chase of the year was for an eared grebe that Al Stokey found at Independence Grove. So I'm sitting at home and I get a text from Andy Stewart that there's an eared grebe at Independence Grove, and I can't remember what I was doing, but so great. I got to get on my bike and just run over there and see if I can catch it. Now, when you chase stuff on a bicycle, that's a lot of energy expenditure. So, and it's an hour from my house to Independence Grove. So I got out there and I think I averaged about 15 miles an hour. It wasn't too bad. And sure enough, the bird was still there. So that was exciting to get your first chase and actually find the bird and not miss it, which was good. That happened to me a couple times too, though. So, but that's birding, you know. And then an osprey on Grass Lake Road. Rode my bike out to Grass Lake Road and got the ospreys nesting on top of the cell tower across from Bluff Lake. So that was pretty fun also. Although that's not a great ride either, because that's a lot of traffic you got to ride in. So, you know, when you're riding your bike, obviously you got to watch out for the cars, try to avoid high traffic areas. But I put a mirror on my bike and I light myself up like a Christmas tree. I'm not kidding. I got lights going off all over the place. So try to make myself as obnoxious as possible so cars won't run into me. And it worked pretty well because I got hit by nobody. So that was good. I did have a few flats, but Didn't get hit by anybody, and I'm still not very good at fixing my bike. I have to get better at that, but that's going to be a slow process, unfortunately. All right, so in April, the shorebirds start coming at the end of the month, and so Waukegan, of course, Waukegan's got to be like one of the great birding spots in the county, and I have to keep riding down Washington Street to go down there. But as long as you go early, it's not as bad. And then you hook around and go to Lyons Woods and then come back up the bike path, and then take side streets on the way back, and you can avoid Washington Street, which I learned too. So that was good. So anyway, you got 3 species of shorebirds here, which is cool. So you got your sanderling, dunlin, and a piping plover. So that was a pretty nifty pickup. And then while I was down there, we also got a willet. And then my second chase of the year, I got to go get long-billed dowitchers on Route 45, which was a 45-minute chase. And they were still there, which was good. That one was in the rain too, so that wasn't a real fun ride, but such is life. When you're chasing the birds, you have to go when they're out there. And you know what? When the weather's terrible, that's when all the good birds show up. So you got to just be ready. Now, May was, of course, because that's the big month of migration. That's when everything's crazy. So Steve Huggins found a scissor-tailed flycatcher at Trumpet Road. And, you know, I was somewhere else the day before. I can't even remember where. So I decided I would try and see if it was still there in the morning. That's an hour plus ride up there from my house, almost 2 hours, actually. It's like an hour and a half. And it was still there, which was awesome, obviously. And there were some other birders there. So that was cool too. It's one of the great things about birding outside. You know, you can socialize with people at distance and still see people and not have to be completely secluded away from everyone else. And so there are a lot of adventures where I, you know, got to meet up with people, and that was fun too. So scissor-tailed flycatcher was a great bird. And then red knot at Waukegan Beach again. That was amazing because I haven't seen a red knot in a couple of years, and I saw 2 of them last year. One in the fall and one in the spring. So you got a red one in the spring, which is always cool. And then same day, I think there's a yellow-billed cuckoo, which of course blocked his face nicely for the photograph, sitting in a scrub patch right on the road on the exit road at Clayton. So right by the railroad track, you cross right there, and there's a little scrubby patch, and it's just sitting in there. It's the craziest place to see one, but nice and viewable for a change instead of just sitting in the back of the woods someplace. And then, of course, it's warbler season. So I think I got almost all the warblers I needed either at Waukegan or right on the Millennium Trail by my house. I didn't have to go chasing down to Ryerson or anything to get warblers. I think I made 1 trip to Ryerson the entire year, maybe 2. But yeah, I mean, it's a great ride to go down there, but it's long though. And I didn't really have to go that far. So I didn't really go that much. And here's a nice neotropic cormorant also found by, I think it was Steve. Although I can't remember for sure who found that bird, but that was a great bird as well. You see the nice white border on his face, which is always good when you can see that. And then June came around, and I'm with Adam at Waukegan again. So yeah, after I made my first trip to Waukegan in January and said I would never do it again, I spent like the rest of the year going to Waukegan. So, but I managed to find a way to do it, which wasn't too terrible. The worst thing about going down there is the potholes all over the road. They're worse than the drivers. You just got to watch where you're going before, or you're going to get thrown off your bike. But anyway, we were down there, and I said to Adam, I think we need to find a white rump sandpiper today. Sure enough, right in front of us is a white rump sandpiper, which of course happens never, but did that day. So that was cool. Got great looks at 2 of them, I think, actually. And then Adam, of course, finds the most ridiculous of June birds, a great black-backed gull in June. What's a great black-backed gull doing here in June? I have no idea. But sure enough, there was one there. So went and got that bird at North Point Marina. And then the blue grosbeak, also found by Adam and Andy Stewart at IBSP. So those are nice birds. I didn't find, and well, I found that one kind of with Adam. We were both together. But these two, I had chased his birds and found them. So there's a lot of chasing. It's more fun when you find your own stuff, but when you're doing a big year, you got to chase other people's stuff too. So it was good. It's fun. It's a good workout, which is one of the reasons why I did it on my bike too. It's great exercise. And then July was really slow. So July was slow. I got really bored, and I have really bad wanderlust. I hate sitting around. I don't like it at all. I got to get out and do stuff. So I decided I was going to make an overnight trip. So I've never been on a bike packing trip in my entire life. So I watched some YouTube videos and threw some stuff on my bike and tried it once and ran out of water and had to have my wife come and pick me up. And I'm like, oh, that was terrible. So I had to make some adjustments, did it again. And this time it worked really well. Slept overnight in some church parking lot yard, and it was great. And then I got up the next day. I think I found summer tanager, got these monk parakeets, and went to the Morton Arboretum and got a yellow-throated warbler. So I got three birds that day.
Don't get bit.
That trip. And then I think the total miles on that trip was like 189 or something like that. That was no. I got 94 miles in one day. So I didn't quite get 100 on my first ride down there, my first day down there.
I'm gonna have to leave and
You can mute yourself. Then I was looking at eBird reports and saw that there was a broad-winged hawk nest across from a couple of houses in Highland Park, and got some great help down there to find the broad-winged hawk, which is basically behind Ravinia, right on a trail up in this tree. It was not the place I would expect to find a broad-winged hawk nest, but there was 3 or 4 of them up there, I think. That was pretty neat. That was pretty neat because I'd never seen a broad-winged hawk nest before. So that was an awesome ride also. I think that was a 2-hour ride down there to Highland Park, but it's a really easy ride because it's all on trails. Anything south is really good because there's a lot of trails that go south. Unbelievably, there's no bike path that goes east to the lakefront. There's no east-west bike path to the lakefront anywhere north of Chicago anyway. I don't know if there's one in Chicago or not. I don't go that far south, but nothing north of that anyway. So going south was a breeze though. It was very, very easy riding, and you could bird like almost the entire way down there. So I made that trip to DuPage in July, and then also got the broad-winged hawk in Highland Park. But that was pretty much it for July. July was pretty slow. And then August came around, and shorebird month picks up a little bit more. And at Techney Basin, a couple of golden plovers showed up, some stilt sandpipers showed up. I just drew all over this just to show people how you can tell. These are golden plovers, but there's nice white eye line. You can't really see the bill that well in this picture, but it actually looks a little golden when you're looking at them in the telescope. Their primary extension is longer than their tails, so you can see how long their feathers are. Got those two, which is really good for Northern Illinois. They're tough to get. Golden plovers are when you're away from the sod farms. And then stilled sandpipers are really hard this year. Usually I don't have any difficulty getting them, but this year I didn't hardly see any. And so I had to ride out there and get those as well. But that was a great trip out there with Jerry Hampton met me out there, and he did a lot of trips with me and served as my emergency backup. So he was a big help. And then the worst trip of the year. So I had to drive down to, so Adam finds this buff-breasted sandpiper on Waukegan Beach at the middle of the afternoon with crowds of people all over the place. And it's 3:30 and I have to chase this bird or I'm not going to get it. So I ride my bike down there at 3 or whatever in the afternoon, which is the worst time ever to ride on Washington Street because there's no shoulder. There's no place to ride except on the road, which is covered with potholes. And everybody's coming home from work. So I'm in rush hour traffic basically. And this one guy I thought was going to shoot me. He gets out of, he pulls up next to me in his truck and starts yelling at me. Fortunately, there was police cars about 50 feet in front of me. So I think I was saved by them, but I just kept riding and he disappeared, which was good, but it was a little shaky there for a few minutes. That was the only issue I ever had with a person in a car though. Well, there was one at Waukegan where it was a little strange, but nothing dangerous really. Some guy kept following me in his car. He looked at me once and I was trying to be friendly and I said, hi. And then he just kept following me. And I said, all right, this is getting creepy. And I just left. So yeah, there's stuff on your bike. Oh, we found, and then I forgot one time we went down to Waukegan. I can't remember when it was, but Andy Stewart found a dead body down there washed up on the beach. I stayed away from it because that obviously was very, very creepy. And I'm just like, I'm not going over there. I think Adam talked to the police. He called the police. So yeah, some strange stuff down at Waukegan. All right, so August, you get your shorebirds showing up, and September, you get more shorebirds showing up. And you also had the least bitterns at Waukegan, which were amazing. Rarely do you get such great looks at least bitterns as you did at Waukegan this year. They were there so many times, and you could get really nice looks at them. So we had those, and then the Nelson sparrows start coming in at the end of the month. Those require some work. The best place to get them is over at Pine Dunes. So I'd ride my bike over to Pine Dunes. They used to be really easy at Rollins, but for some reason, not so much anymore. And some of the ponds, you can check out the marshy edges of the ponds, and that's where the Nelsons hang out. So we got those. And then one day I was getting ready to go to the gym because I coach at CrossFit as well. And so I was coaching class in the morning. So I thought, I'll go out and scout these places in the morning before I go. And so I drive out to the Peterson Road floodle, and there's 2 redneck phalaropes there, and I'm not on my bike. And so they don't count. But fortunately, I had them from May back at Nippersink, or excuse me, at in McHenry County over off of the name of the road that I can't remember anymore, but it had the big floodle out there. And so I got them out there. But then apparently there was an avocet there that I missed, and that I did not have. So I had to get home, get on my bike, and then ride back over there so I could find the avocet that Peter Weber found after I had found the redneck phalaropes. So that was pretty crazy. This guy apparently was hiding behind reeds over here or something, and I missed him. So then I rode out to the fairgrounds, found the avocet and a bunch of other birders there, which was great. So we had a nice little avocet party, and lots of dancing and singing was done, and it was a great bird for the year. You know, when you start getting into the end of the year in September and October and November, every bird starts to get a little bit more important because there's not that many left anymore. And here is the most green thing that you can do. Sit on your rear end and look for birds. So you should always do a big sit. You know, I'm probably the least well-adapted person for a big sit because I hate sitting still and I love doing big sits because you're constantly looking for stuff. So the key when you do a big sit is you got to find an area that's got varied habitat. The best place is on the lakefront because that's a migratory pathway. And so you get a lot of stuff that's passing through it. But I like doing them at Rollins because it's across the street from my house. And there are a lot of varied habitats there. So even though it's not quite as good as doing it on the lakefront, it's still pretty good. And so we went out there and we got 79 species, which is pretty good. And that's my record for a big sit at Rollins. But, the guys on the lakefront for our competition, they got 93, I think, or something like that. And then I think Collins' team in the Illinois River Valley had over 100, which is crazy. So that was a pretty amazing day. But we had some really good birds. I had my golden plover, which is a sight bird for me. So I had another sight bird that day. This bit you can see from the main observation deck. And so if you have a really strong scope, you can see it pretty well. And all the shorebirds like to hang out in the mud over there. You also get a lot of waterfowl there. And stuff's flying around all over the place. There's a lot of action going on. The key is you got to get a day with not a lot of wind. Because if there's a lot of wind, then it tends to curtail bird activity quite a bit. And you got lots of raptors moving around too. So that was fun. We had a great day that day. Then we get to October. I think I traveled to Texas for my daughter's birthday for the first week in October. And so I wasn't around for the first week in October. But then second week in October, it's time to get the scoters. So it's time for lake watch. So Andy and Cece and Rob and I were out there lake watching. We had some good lake watches out there. We had really close flybys of all 3 species of scoters. So that was a lot of fun. One of the best looks ever at black scoters in lake watch for me anyway. And the hawk watch. So you got lake watches and hawk watches in October. And at the hawk watch, some of the best birds are not hawks. They're tundra swans. You get nice flocks of tundra swans flying over at the hawk watch. We had multiple flocks of tundra swans flying over. So that was a year bird at the time. So that was a good one. You can get snow geese in there sometimes with Canada geese when they're flying by. So you can get lots of waterfowl as well as the raptors. You might get a cave swallow or something crazy flying by. They've had ibises at the hawk watch. You can get all kinds of crazy stuff at the hawk watch. Lots of finches this year at the hawk watch flying by. So the hawk watch is a great place to go in the fall. You never know what you're going to get there. And of course, the finch eruption began. And for a very short period of time anyway, we had lots of finches around. So the red crossbills showed up at Van Patten Woods. So we had a crossbill party there with about 11 people looking for red crossbills one day. So I rode my bike over to Van Patten, which is about an hour one way from my house. And I'll tell you what, on my way over there that day, I think it was toward the end of the month, I swear I had a black rail in front of me. Jumped onto the trail in front of me, right at the boardwalk in the Millennium Trail, and then hopped off into the reeds at like 4, I don't know what it was. No, it was like 6 a.m., but it was still dark. And I tried to call it in, but it wouldn't respond. I couldn't get anything. But I mean, it was a black bird with wings, and it was little. I mean, what else is it? It wasn't a red-winged blackbird. So, I mean, it wasn't a mink. I don't know what else it was going to be, but it was pretty nuts. So that was the best bird that I missed that maybe wasn't a bird, but who knows? And then we had my second, oh geez, I forgot one of the best bird of the year. I forgot to mention that one. I'll come back to it. So this was the second state lifer that I got this year, was the black headed grosbeak. So never had a black headed grosbeak in Illinois before. So the one that was found out in McHenry County, I rode my bike out there, which was like, I think it was 4 hours total, 2 hour plus 2.5 hours one way, I think, 5 hours total. It was a pretty nice ride though. The Prairie Trail out there is pretty nice. You just got to go up a huge hill in Crystal Lake. That was 7% grade hill. That might have been the largest hill I had to climb the entire year. But that was a great bird to get though. So that was October, and then probably the best day of the year, I had a cattle egret and found a golden eagle at the Hawk Watch on the same day. So I found the golden eagle, and Tamima Atani took this amazing photo of it as it flew by us. And then somebody, I think the McClellans, found a cattle egret at Waukegan Beach. So from the Hawk Watch, I then rode over to Waukegan Beach at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and found a cattle egret. Those were two amazing birds to get in October. So that was a very exciting day. And it made the ride up Washington Street way better after getting those two. Then November comes around, and there's lots of stuff around in November too. A lot of chasing. Oh my gosh. First was the finches, and for some reason we couldn't get red poles anywhere except at Melody Farms. I mean, that was insane. So rode my bike over to Melody Farms, and sure enough, there's a red pole right there in the parking lot. That's the only red pole I saw the entire year. I think I might have had one fly over me once, but that was it. Still haven't seen any since then either. And then the spotted towhee. It still always amazes me how nice people are with their bird feeders and letting people just come over to their house and just sit in their yard and look for birds. It's just incredible. And this lady in Palatine was the nicest lady ever. She would bring us donuts. I rode my bike out there. Scott Latimer was out there. Jerry was out there. And the three of us were looking for the towhee, and she's bringing us donuts and coffee, and the nicest lady ever. And, so it was really a lot of fun. Part of the fun part of doing the biking big year was just running into people and all the nice people that, that helped you along the way. And of course, the spotted towhee was an extremely cool bird to watch. So that was a great one. And then the same day at another feeder, a double feeder watch. Rob Bernberg takes this killer photo of an evening grosbeak, which sat on this little hook for about 20 seconds and was gone. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's all you get for the entire county for the year. So that was incredible. We were there hanging out. I don't know how long we were there, 45 minutes maybe. And all of a sudden Andy starts yelling, "There he is." And yeah, it was pretty cool. This is probably my favorite bird of the whole year. And that bird, I mean, male evening grosbeaks, when you see one, you're just kind of like, it looks like a hood ornament. I mean, you're looking at it going, is that really a bird? It looks like a decoration. It's crazy. I've seen a female in the past, but that was my first male evening grosbeak in Illinois. I've seen them up in Minnesota before, but seeing them down here is just a little, I don't know why it's different. Should be the same, but it seems different anyway. But that was very cool. So I got two awesome birds the same day at different feeders. So I rode my bike out to Palatine, 2 hours, turned around, came home. And on the way home, this was right on the way to my house, which is really amazing. Stopped at this feeder on the way to my house and then just kept going and then got home and got two killer birds. So that was a great day. And then we had out at Glacial Park, the whooping crane showed up. There was a whooper out there. I don't have a whooping crane for Illinois. So that was another state bird for me. I actually got 3 of them. I forgot about that. So this is obviously a terrible photo. I am never going to win any awards for photography. And I apologize for all my bad pictures, but I do the best I can. That's all I can tell you. So there's the white crane right there. And then those are all sandhills. There was probably 400 plus sandhills there that day. And Jerry and I were looking for any white one in the pile. we knew that it left shortly after sunrise. So we got there really early and we're looking around roadside in the pond where they all were roosting, and sandhills, sandhills, sandhills everywhere. No white ones. And then all of a sudden they erupt out of the marsh, and out of some back corner comes flying the white one. And fortunately, this doesn't happen that often either. I actually got on the bird right away and saw it flying across in front of me and was able to track it all the way and actually get my camera on it before it was gone. So I at least got a photo of it. Well, not the greatest, but it was a photo anyway. But it was really cool. So we got a whooping crane in November. And then when the purple sandpiper showed up at North Point Marina, everybody went crazy. We haven't seen a North Point Marina, or we haven't seen a purple sandpiper in 4 years in Lake County. So everybody doing a big year was flocking to North Point Marina. There was about 25 people when I got there, everybody tracking the bird. And it was pretty cool because the bird kept flying around. And so I kept getting text messages and group me alerts that the bird was now at the south end. Now it's back in the north end. I kept riding my bike back and forth. Finally caught it before it flew away, and actually was able to get a couple of decent shots of it. That was, the purple sandpipers are just awesome. And they actually showed up a couple of times at Waukegan too. So we got them a few times this year. Always fun to see those birds. They're awesome birds. Oh, this is a great one. You guys would have loved this. So I'm riding. So Adam texts me. It's like the day before Thanksgiving, I think. And it's raining, drizzling out. And I'm not going anywhere on my bike on this day. It's a cruddy day. And so, of course, Adam's out looking for birds at Independence Grove and finds a Ross's goose and texts me and said, I have a Ross's goose in Independence Grove. And I said, of course you do. So now I have to get on my bike and ride over there. So I go flying out there on my bike, and it was not actually, the rain had stopped, which was awesome. So I didn't get wet. So I'm riding over there, and I get to Independence Grove, and I'm riding up the trail. I'm flying up the trail. I'm looking on the pond at all the Canada geese, thinking that the Ross's goose is going to be sitting in there with the Canada geese on the pond. And I want to hurry up and get there before they fly away. So I'm flying up there on my bike, and I almost ran over this goose. I'm not kidding. I've come flying up there and see the goose sitting on the side. It did an immediate left toward the trees and almost wiped out on my bike. Oh my gosh. It was pretty funny. But anyway, got a good shot of the Ross's goose, and he was not phased at all. Just kind of sat there and ate grass, so that was awesome. That was a fantastic bird. And I think that was the second to last bird of the year that I got. Yeah, these weren't year birds, but these were good birds that I saw for only like the second time. I had one pintail in the spring. So when the pintails showed up at Rollins in the fall, I was really excited to actually see get a couple of good looks at them, because I got a distant one over at Fourth Lake in, I don't know, April or something, and it was not that great of a look. And then some snow buntings at North Point Marina. I just had a flyover snow bunting early in January, I think, or late in January. So I didn't have a good look at those either until this year in November. So those were good birds to get nice looks at, because I don't see them very often. You can't really, snow buntings are really hard to get unless you're way out in McHenry County on the farm fields or on the lakefront. Where I live in, at Rollins, we don't get them there hardly ever. So that's a tough bird from where I'm at. And then December comes around, and, it's the end of the year. December is Christmas bird count month, which I don't do on my bike. I love Christmas bird counts. Other than riding my bike and finding birds, doing Christmas bird counts is my favorite thing to do. And so I try to do as many as I possibly can. I think this year I did 9. So I really like, but it starts on December 14th and it goes all the way until January 5th. And so I was pretty much done with my big year by like the third week in December. And so I didn't think I was going to get too many birds. I was hoping I'd be able to get a snowy owl. I really wanted to end the year with a snowy owl. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I thought, I'll end the year with a really big, grand finale. So I decided I did two really long trips. I forgot to mention my other one. And at the beginning of August, I went to Kendall County and Kane County. I didn't get any pictures from that trip though, because I saw an upland sandpiper, but it was really far away and didn't get a very good photo of it at all. And then I got Bell's vireo and white-eyed vireo, which I mostly were herd only birds. I saw fleeting glimpses of them, but nothing really extraordinary. And then what else did I get? I don't know, that might have been it for that trip. But then, so that was a 100-miler that I did riding down to Kendall County. So I did a 100-miler riding to Kendall County, then slept overnight at Big Rock State Park in a campground, and then rode back. So that was I don't remember how many miles. It was long, but it was a 100-miler. So I figured I'm going to end the year with another 100-miler, and I'm going to get the Rufous hummingbird that's out down in Lyle, because there's nothing around here right now. So I'm going to go see if that bird hangs around. It's been hanging around a while. It's probably still going to be there. So I tried to pick a day where the forecast was pretty good. So the weather underground said, minimal chance of precipitation, no wind. And so I headed out at like 4 a.m. By the way, riding your bike at night is the dream. So if you want to ride anywhere at night, as long as you know the route, if you know the route, you're not going to be surprised by stuff that shows up, in the path or whatever. Obviously you need good lighting, that goes without saying, but as long as you know the route, riding at night is the way to go, because there's no traffic and no wind. It's really, you can get down quick at night. So I did a lot of night rides. At first I didn't like them at all, because I don't like going out at night, because I'm afraid of the dark. Basically, I hate being out in the dark by myself. So, but I did them a few times, and I got really used to doing it, and I knew the routes really well, and it was really easy riding, and it's quiet. You can hear stuff really well, especially, when you're looking for owls. Obviously you have to do that quite a bit. So anyway, I went down, made a nice 100-mile trip, and the ride down there was fantastic. Got there, sat down on the sidewalk with my RX bars for breakfast, had a drink, and in comes the hummingbird in 5 minutes. I literally waited 5 minutes and the bird showed up, which is crazy. And then I wanted to get lots of good pictures of it. So I pulled out the camera, took a few pictures, and of course my battery was dead. So I unfortunately didn't get a lot of great pictures. I just got a couple of halfway decent ones, and you can kind of see the maroon rusty patch on the side of the bird. Everyone else identified it as being a Rufous, which it probably is. I'm not saying it's not, but I couldn't identify it as anything more than a Rufous Allens based on what I saw. So that's what I had to put in my list. So, and that was the last bird that I got. So 108 miles. Now on the way back, it snowed, sleeted, and frozen rained on me the entire way back. So that was not a fun ride back. But, it was a lot better knowing that I saw the hummingbird. But, it was one of those rides where it was pretty much a test of mental toughness to get back. It wasn't the physical part of it. It was just constantly having to deal with the precipitation, which is really annoying to me anyway. So that was a great ride and a great way to end the year. I was hoping for one more bird, but that ended up being number 276 for the year. So that was a lot of fun. So the biggest misses I had this year, obviously the snowy owl, which showed up December 9th, the same day that I left town to go to South Carolina to see my dad because he wasn't doing very well. And so I had to leave soon and go down there and see him. And the bird showed up for one day and missed that one. So that was kind of tough. But then I actually pretty sure I saw a goshawk in February. But the problem was I didn't get any documentation, and I have terrible self-doubt sometimes, especially if somebody goes out and sees some other bird that's similar to it, which happened. They got a red-shouldered hawk, which isn't a lot different. So I figured that it's possible I just messed up the ID on it, so I never counted that bird. And then I was actually at the hawk watch the day that an adult goshawk flew by the hawk watch, but it was the day we had 20+ mile-an-hour sustained winds all day. And even I'm not crazy enough to ride my bike in that for 50 miles total. So I left my bike at home that day and just drove to the hawk watch. And I didn't even stay that long because it was so cold and uncomfortable. I went home at like 10 o'clock. So yeah, that was a tough one to miss too. And the Franklin's gull I should have had because I was actually at the lakefront that day at the hawk watch, but didn't have Franklin's gull on my radar for that day for some reason, because it was a perfect day for them to be moving, and just wasn't prepared. Did a bad job of preparing myself. So whenever there's a low pressure system that comes by at the beginning of November, the next day is a great day for movement of Franklin's gulls on the lakefront. That's exactly what it was that day. And I should have been prepared for that, but I missed it. And so those three were the big misses for the year. I pretty much got everything else. There wasn't a whole lot else that I missed. So it was a pretty good year. I was pretty happy with the way things turned out. So I had 3 flat tires. Then I bought puncture resistant tires, so I'd never have to deal with a flat tire again, which I didn't. And then the one drawback to those is that they're a little heavier. So my bikes are definitely not aero. They're not going to like fly through cutting wind and stuff, but they get you there, and they do a good job of keeping you safe. So that's all I care about. But you know, it was great. It was great working out. I had to eat a lot. You're amazed. It's amazing how many calories you expend doing all that riding. I literally had to keep from losing too much weight. So I would ride my bike, go home, eat, and sleep. And that's what I did. Well, when you're retired, you can do all that stuff. So yeah, it was fun. All right, so what's going to happen this year? So this year, let's see, all you people that are getting ready to get on your bikes for 2021. And if you're not comfortable riding a bike, I understand that. Some people just really aren't comfortable getting on a bike, which is not really, it's not hard to understand that. Just go out, you can walk. Lots of people have done walking big years. But you know, anything you can do to be green is always good. So try doing just your patch. So here's what I'm doing for this year. So I'm not going to do crazy numbers of miles like I did last year. I'm going to do a count circle big year. So if you're not familiar with this, because I love doing Christmas bird counts. So the Christmas bird count is based on the 7.5 mile radius circle from a central point. So every Christmas bird count circle has whatever they call their center, and then you find all the birds inside that circle. So in all directions, 7.5 mile radius. So there's my house. So this is my circle. Now I made this. There's an app called Count Circle. You can actually get it on your iPhone if you want to use it. I don't know how it works for Android. I don't know if they have that, but I know you can get it for your iPhone. And then you just plug in your house as the center, makes a circle for you. And then you just find all the birds in here. So that's what I'm doing this year. I'm still using my bike. I have more miles actually on my bike this year for January already than I had for all of January last year. Even though I'm riding in a smaller area, I go all over the place in this thing. So yeah, I think I have 58 species right now. But I've been gone quite a bit too. So we'll get a lot more when I come back. And so that's the plan for this year. We'll see how that goes. I'll keep blogging, probably writing a lot more stuff. If you guys have questions on any kinds of stuff you want to know about, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you out with stuff.
I've got a few questions in the chat.
Okay, cool.
Or comments. First of all, I want to say that Beau puts us all to shame. I'm proud of myself when I do a 1 hour spin class, right? A
Well,
50-mile ride. Oh, actually, or if I do a 25-mile bike ride, like great.
that's good. Don't put yourself to shame. That's good. I mean, everybody does. I mean, if you're doing something, that's good. You don't have to compare. Like, I do. I mean, if we want to compare ourselves with Dorian Anderson, we can all feel inferior. I mean, that guy did 16,000 miles. That's crazy. I still can't understand how he rode his bike up and down mountains. I ride my bike up Mount 41 to climb an overpass, and I think that's too much. So anything you can do to get out there is good. So you feel good about the fact that you're getting out and doing something. So just keep doing it.
Difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition.
I don't know what that was. Okay, I'll just go quickly down some of this chat. First of all, when I was talking before you started, Beau, and I was talking about the Blackiston fish owl, Donnie Dan, who I think is in Arizona right now, said during a trip to Japan, one of them flew over him. So very lucky.
By the way, I have that book and I'm reading it right now too. And it is an awesome book.
Yeah, it's like adventure and
it's great.
conservation. Carla says about your students at the high school, love you. Bob asked where the dump is, and I think Cindy said Allegheny Road in Grays Lake.
Oh, sorry. The dump is Countryside Landfill, which is on Route 83 and Peterson Road in Libertyville. And then the FedEx plant's right across the street. So you can just like pull in. Well, if you're driving, you can pull in and park your car right along the side of the road and then just pull your scope out and just go walk over in front of the dump and take pictures, or then look at the gulls. If you're riding your bike, it's even easier. You can just pull it up on top of the curb with you.
Okay. And then let's see, Carla was talking about the burn at Rollins, which is also going to affect the moth and butterfly population.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. Nicole says her husband custom made their fat bikes.
Nice. Feel free to
Laura
custom make one for me.
Yeah. John asked about your Count Circle 2021 Count Circle. Is that a website or only an app? He said. Yeah.
It's an app. Actually, I know that it's an app. I haven't checked to see if it's a website.
Okay.
I don't know. It might be, but I know it's an app though.
Okay. And then we have a question. Where was the Vesper Sparrow nesting site again?
Okay, so the nesting site, it was on Savage Road. Can I pull up Google Maps on here?
Yeah, it's in your browser. You have to unshare your PowerPoint.
So if
share
I
your
had,
browser and bring up maps.
let's see.
You bring up your browser,
Yeah, I'm trying to.
click on that plus.
Click
Oh.
on the plus.
There, right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
Perfect.
There you go.
All right. So let's see, where's can we go to, oh, here we go. All right, so this is showing me Waco. So let's go to Savage Road and Antioch. All right, so if you're going, so this forest preserve over here is Ravens Glen over here to the east. So if we zoom out, so here's Route 45. Here's Miller Road right here. And here's Savage Road over here. So Miller and Savage intersect. This is where I thought what was a goshawk, which actually turned out to be a red-shouldered hawk. I had that right here. And then farther up this way, not there, but right about let's see, there's a house here. Right about in here is where I had the Vesper sparrows singing on Savage Road. And so Savage keeps going all the way around to Grass Lake. So here's Grass Lake Road. And then here's Hastings Lake Forest Preserve right here.
Oh, by Hastings. Oh,
Yeah. And then here's McDonald Woods over here. See, from my house, you can ride all the way. You can ride the Millennium Trail, which, by the way, is another great spot for finding birds, is the Millennium Trail that not many people do because it's not really accessible by car. But here's Rollins down here. So you take Rollins, you go the back trail on Rollins, and then you jump on the Millennium Trail right here. There's an underpass at Rollins Road. Here's where I had what I thought was a black rail right there. And then you go through here. And I had saw-whet owl in here this year. Multiple Connecticut warblers I had this year there. And then you just keep going on the Millennium Trail. Cross Sand Lake Road. And then you'll go take the back subdivision streets, and here's McDonald Woods. So this takes you to McDonald Woods, do the trails here. And then you can either go out onto Kelsey over here, which is what I usually do. I usually ride my bike over to Kelsey, or excuse me, Beck Road. And then Beck goes all the way around to Grass Lake Road. And by the way, subdivision streets are the best routes for riding your bike. They're completely smooth. They're like giant bike paths. There's rarely any traffic on them. And when there is traffic, it's going like 10 miles an hour. So subdivision roads are my favorite routes. They were fantastic. I took them all the way down to DuPage, and they were amazing. So you take back road all the way to Grass Lake, and then you can, jump on, you can go over to Hastings if you want, or you can just ride Grass Lake a little ways. You don't have to ride it very far. You don't want to be on Grass Lake too long, and then get on Savage, and there you go.
okay. Let's just see what else. Let's see. That was cool. People enjoyed your stories, loved your greenery blog, low carbon footprint. Wait a minute. Okay, Vesper Sparrow we got. How far was the red-throated loon from you? I don't think it was very far, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Mile.
Sorry, I meant to ask, can I just add, that was my question. I just was wondering how far it was away when you spotted it. Like how
Not very far. It was probably out. Okay, so here's Third Lake right here. So here's Third Lake. There's a boat launch right here. So I was standing right there. The bird was about right there.
Was it spotting scope, or did you binoculars you first saw it?
Oh no, scope. You need a scope for that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I first saw the bird with my binoculars, but to get a good enough look to identify it, you need a scope.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because it's hard enough to see him as it is, but.
Oh yeah. You miss a lot if you're just using binoculars.
Okay.
I went down one of the days. Okay, here's one of my big mistakes of the entire year. I went down to the lakefront to look for red-throated loons in I don't know when it was, January, February, I can't remember, but I was there looking at the South Unit at Illinois Beach State Park at the park office, standing on the back where we normally do lake watches, looking and scanning with my binoculars for red-throated loons. But see, they're white on the bottom, and they can blend in with the water on top. And so if you don't get a good look out there, you can just miss them completely. Well, I didn't see any. And then Josh Engel reported like about 40 of them that he saw flying by at various points in time during the morning. And he was out there exactly the same time I was. So there had to have been birds out there that I just didn't see because I wasn't using my scope. I was using my binoculars. So yeah, whenever you're looking for birds out in the water at any distance, you got to make sure you use your scope because it's too easy to miss them all.
Well, I want to thank everyone for attending. We had like, I don't know, over 70 people who stayed on for the whole thing, Beau. So it was a lot of fun. Again, I think all of us, I mean, most of us did not go see this many birds in our cars. So what a great adventure. And it was, thank you for sharing. And
Pleasure.
we'll look forward to your next story and your next field trip, Beau.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
Texas. Thanks so
Appreciate it.
much. Good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Beau. It's
Have a
great.
good 2021.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
Great job.
Bye.
Say hi to your family.
Awesome.
Thank
Happy
you.
birding. Great talk.
Thank you.
I knew it would be, Beau.
Thanks,
But you
Raina.
had a great year.
It was pretty fun.
Roxy, hey, Roxy, get out of my house.
The most inspiring minds. The most
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I wondered if you ever went to Skokie Lagoon. They rent kayaks and canoes over there.
No, I
Where the
didn't.
blue heron nest.
Yeah, I mean, Skokie Lagoons is a great place. I mean, yeah, there's a number of people that bird there pretty frequently and they find lots of good stuff. But there's a lot of places that are closer to my house where I can find similar birds. So that's the only reason I really don't go out there. I don't make
Okay, well, you didn't have the blue heron there in your pictures.
oh
And
no.
they have a nesting spot right in the island that's in the middle of the lagoon. It's really cool.
Oh yeah. Well, I saw
And
two.
when you get it in the canoe and the kayaks, you can see so much more and go right to shore, and
Yes,
it's really cool.
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You're right.
I recommend you do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, though. It's really gotten me enthused now.
Good. Thanks for
Thanks,
listening.
everybody. Let's look forward to a better spring this year, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Stay well, wear your
well.
masks.
You all.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.